Hello everybody, welcome to another brand new video on my YouTube channel, Talk Code. It's been a while since I last posted another video, but in this quick video we're gonna go through a very cool thing in terms of programming in some sort of physics maybe. So in this video we're gonna talk about physics engine. Now before we go through the coding, let's discuss some of the theory behind the physics engine. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go hit the beautiful red button down there. And also, if you enjoyed this kind of video, you can share this video with your friends, your families, or whoever who is interested. Now I'm gonna switch my camera to my iPhone in order to share the screen, and I'm gonna write some equations, some sort of theory for you in order to discuss it. And then after that, we're gonna go through the coding. And so yeah, that's it. First of all, let's start with the definition of physics engine itself. So you may ask yourself, what is a physics engine? Now, in very basic or non-complex term, physics engine is basically a piece of software that lets you model a physical system to simulate the way that a physical system works and to simulate all the forces and all the parameters that are engaged in that physical system to show how that phenomenon works. Now, physics engine has different tones of usage, but I think the most important part of its usage is in game development. Now, in modern games that are very close to the reality, or it's better to say hyper real games, like the new games such as Call of Duty or these sort of games that use a lot of real stuff. So they need to shape different physical phenomenons, different physical systems to make sure that everything looks like the most realistic way. So this is the most important part of the physics engine and the way that it's being used in our modern world. And the other one is for some scientists who works for those big companies such as NASA, when they want to model the way that their rockets or their stuff works, they cannot take the risk to pay a lot of money on just testing a very basic idea. So what they do, instead of uh, investing tons of money on a very basic thing to make the thing and to test it, instead they use a software to model that physical system, and then based on that modeling, they check whether it is gonna work or it's not. So it basically helps them to predict the way a system is gonna work, and if that prediction works fine, then they were gonna invest on that real project. I think it's better to make a video series like 2-3 videos in order to share different types of physics engine, but in the first video, which is this video, we're gonna discuss the very basic form of physics engine, just to make an introduction. So the thing that we're gonna make is a physics engine to simulate the falling of a ball from a specific height. So let me show you how. So okay, so this is the ground, or let me use this ruler. So this is our ground. Now we got a ball here, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna imagine that this ball is being being dropped from this height. So we're gonna have a height that we're gonna use letter H in order to show that height, and we're gonna let this ball down. We can drop it, so it's gonna go this way, very natural way. When you drop a ball from a specific height, so you have a couple of forces involved, forces that this ball is going to be under influence by those forces. So the very basic thing, or the main part of our physics engine, is going to be calculating and simulating all those forces in a very realistic way, or at least something acceptable for us. We're not gonna make it 100% accurate, but something that makes sense, right? I'm not a physics person at all, so I'm not gonna go in depth of these physics theories, but the only thing that I'm gonna do is to share a very basic intuition of what are these, and in order to like something at a level of introduction. But don't worry, these are not like very complex. It's basically high school physics in the subject of kinematics. So if you know kinematics, then it's fine. But if you don't know, you can just Google this and or check the description part of this video. I'm gonna put some links for the resources. So if you are not familiar with this stuff, you can go check those videos before this, so that you can get a very basic understanding of kinematics and all these formulas, so that you will understand how these things works. And make sure to check the description part as well. Now the first thing that we're gonna do is to we're gonna talk about our first formula. So the first formula that we're gonna discuss is Newton's second law. So you may know this formula from high school physics. So this is like this is the formula. It is F, which is force, equals m, which is mass, times a, which is acceleration. This formula is very, very, very clear. Nothing complex about this. So it is very clear for you guys, and I bet you can understand it with a little bit of like physics background from high school. So it is not nothing hard. And basically, it's gonna show us the relationship between the acceleration and the amount of forces that is applied to a specific object. So if we have a ball here and we like shoot that ball, or we hit that ball with our leg, then we're gonna put some forces, and that forces is gonna make some acceleration to that ball here. So okay, so this this force that we're gonna applying will cause to some acceleration to this object. So this is basically all this formula is gonna tell us. So so once again, it tells us that the acceleration of an object is related to the amount of forces that is being applied to that shape or that object. All right, so there's nothing hard about this. Okay, so this is the first formula that we need to know. If we're gonna go a little bit deeper into the kinematics and the formulas and relationships that we have there, so the second thing that we need to, in order to write our physics engine, is this formula. So this is the second one. So this is called velocity varlet. So don't be afraid of the name. It is basically an algorithm in order to write this formula. But the formula used in this velocity varlet thing is very basic, so don't worry. Delta x. So delta is some sort of the change. So we're going to use this in order to show the change. The change occurred in x. All right. So this equals to v0. So okay, now let me just write it down and then I'll discuss it. Plus half times a times this time powered by 2. Right. Color. So this is our initial velocity. The velocity that this object or ball or whatever it is going to start with that velocity. So this is our initial velocity. So let me write init. So init stands for initial. Then we got the second part. Now this part is the amount of time that it takes to go from one position to another position. So I write just time, but you know this is the time that it needs, or the time that it takes to go from this point to another point. Nothing more. If you want to get a better or a greater understanding of this, don't forget to check the description of this video for better resources. Okay, so this is basically our acceleration. Now I write just ac, which stands for acceleration, and this is just the elapsed time itself. So this is also our time. Now this is some sort of formula in order to calculate the amount of change in the position. So object goes from this height, this point, which is like x1 to be set, and it goes down to x2. Then this amount of change in the position is this delta x. we're gonna like calculate this change in position, and we're gonna use it in our physics engine. All right, so let's go for another formula. Now, to make it realistic, we're gonna use another formula. Let's go for another formula and a little bit of theory of what's going on. All right, so now we have a good understanding of those two previous formulas. So first of all, let's start with that same ball example. So this is our ground, and this is a ball being dropped from a specific height, which we're going to use h in order to show that height. All right. So now, while an object is being dropped, there are a couple of forces being applied to that object. First of all, the most obvious one is the gravity force, F. So this is the gravity force, F subscript mg, and this mg is the gravity force. Basically, the way that this force is being calculated, we're gonna like write m, which is the mass of our object, times g, which is the acceleration of gravity. So in most cases, we're gonna use 9.8 or some sort of, then we're gonna write it simply 10, but it's better to write it like 9.8. So this is the first force that's being applied to our object. This is the gravity force. Like when an object is being dropped, it's falling down. So the direction is down, but there is always an opposite force being applied in the opposite like direction. So if like in this case that our ball is being dropped, going from top to bottom, then there is a force being applied in the opposite direction from like bottom to top. So this force, it's the air force, or I mean in this case it is the force powered by air, but in the general term it is called drag force. So we're going to use Ft for this, but remember it is drag force. Now drag force, in this case it is the force powered by air, but it can be anything. So now that we know what is drag force, we're going to go through the formula to calculate the drag force itself, and then we're going to go to the coding. So now we have one more formula to cover, and that's formula of drag force. So we have F subscript D, which stands for drag. So we write F subscript D equals half times, or let me write the formula itself. So we have half times, this is a rho, it is some sort of Greek alphabets, and it is basically the density of that object. So this is nothing, we call this like rho, so the pronunciation is rho, but this is basically the density and nothing more. So don't worry about this. So this is density, and all right. So half times rho times CD, or C subscript D, and then you have times A and times V powered by 2. So this may look a little bit complex, but don't worry, it is very, very intuitive. So don't worry at all. This is called rho. So, but it is basically density. Okay, so this is the density of that object, and this one, C subscript D, this is called, so this C subscript D is called drag coefficient. So as I told you before, I'm not gonna go into the depth of this stuff because I'm not a physics person, I'm doing mostly coding, but I'm gonna just say that it is a number, it is a fixed number, and it depends on the shape of the object that is like in our physical system. Okay, so if we're like considering a ball being dropped from a height, so our shape is a sphere, so it has a specific amount of coefficient of drag or drag coefficient, so we're gonna use it basically. So we're not gonna like calculate this by ourselves. But just to know, this is called drag coefficient. Drag coefficient. And this A is the area of of our shape, or the area that our shape is like going through. For instance, if we have a ball, since it is some sort of circular, then the area would be like this, a very basic circle. So we're gonna like calculate this, the area of our like object. I mean, not the area of our object itself, but the area of the surface that is like applying that force to. So and one last thing is the velocity. So this velocity is the velocity of our object being like going through that surface of fluid. So since this formula is always used in calculating the force against the movement of an object inside of a fluid, so we're gonna like write down the velocity of our movement inside of that fluid. So keep that in mind. So this is basically a velocity. Velocity. Okay. And this is the area. Okay, so I'll put the link in the description, a link to the great videos so that you can get a great understanding, a very heavy understanding of all this stuff. But these are basically three main formulas in order to like write some sort of a very basic physics engine in order to simulate a ball being dropped from height, that physical system. But our code is going to be like very accurate, so don't worry, and like make sure to, if you're not familiar with any of these formulas, just make sure to go check our description, and you'll find some resources, very useful resources to find like to learn a little bit more about these. Alright guys, so we've just discussed the three formulas using the velocity varlet, but one more thing to say is that in order to model these physical systems, we have two main approaches or two main methods. So the first thing that we've been taught in high school with that method is the Euler's method. Okay, so the first method that is being used in high school is the Euler's method because it has great intuitive for students, and you can get a very solid understanding of whatever it is going on. But it's being used like only in theory and in classroom because it has nothing to deal with like real life examples, since in real life we have much more parameters to discuss, but in the Euler's method we have only like a limited numbers of parameters to just to make it clear and make it simpler. So this is the way that it's used in classrooms or in high school. But in terms of like software development, especially in the like game development or physics engine itself, like when scientists want to model a phenomenon, a physical phenomenon, they're going to use another method. So I told you before that was like called velocity varlet. So this is basically an algorithm, velocity varlet. So velocity varlet has much more accuracy than the Euler's method, and it's going to involve like much more number of parameters, like even the smallest one that has a very little impact on our like physical phenomenon. However, it's not going to omit that; it's going to use that in its system. So it has a greater accuracy. So this is basically very accurate and very great option for us software developers in order to write something like something to use in the industry. So just to make it clear and some sort of recap, so this one, the Euler's method, it is great intuitive way, great intuition, but this one is like very accurate. Very accurate, so it is a great option for software developers to write physics engine or game engines. So yeah, this is basically our approaches. All right, guys. So that was all the theory that we need to know about, like in order to like be able to create a very basic physics engine. And in the next part, we're gonna go through writing the physics engine itself, we're going to use JavaScript because JavaScript is very easy to develop. It is fast. We're going to use it in a very fast-paced way to develop because it has a great interaction with like HTML5 and Canvas and all those stuff. So although you can use C++, Python, or any other language that you're familiar with, but in this case, my preference was JavaScript because of the ease of access and the fast-paced development in terms of like HTML5. So, feel free to use whatever you like. But if you want to come up with my examples and my videos, I highly recommend to use JavaScript and HTML5. So thank you very much. See you in the next video. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends, and also hit the thumbs up so that you can keep me motivated creating more videos for you guys. Stay safe. Goodbye.